I can't go back to yesterday because I was a different person then. Isn't that something we all relate to, girls?
Hard to disagree, Victoria. And that's a quote from Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, right?
Exactly. We all have our past selves and our versions of reality. What if we had a mirror that showed us alternate versions of our lives? Would we make different decisions? Would life be better or worse?
I mean, who wouldn't want a glimpse at a different life? But it's all about how we perceive those alternate versions, isn't it?
Perception indeed plays a big role, Suyun. We perceive our realities so differently. It's just as Carol's story suggests. The other side of the mirror represents alternate versions of reality.
Yeah, and those realities can sometimes be more comforting. But they can also be unsettling too, don't you think?
Absolutely. Drawing on my experience, I believe an alternate reality could even assist someone with dealing different problems differently.
I agree. Taking a step into a world where everything is different, from our personality traits to the laws of physics, can certainly be mind-boggling. Yet, it could also provide much-needed perspective and realizations.
True, Victoria. Such perspectives could help us see beyond our confined truths. Recognizing the vast plurality of realities would amaze us, wouldn't it?
Definitely, Mia. The concept alone invites endless possibilities.
Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. That's a quote from none other than Albert Einstein. And doesn't that resonate with what we just talked about, our varied perceptions of reality?
It does, Victoria. It aligns well with the views of Western philosophy. Have you heard of philosopher René Descartes? He's known for his phrase, "I think, therefore I am." It basically suggests that our reality is formed by our thoughts and consciousness. Our perception of the external world is fundamentally constructed by our minds.
Wow, that's deep, Mia. I've read quite a bit of Eastern philosophy, which also touches upon a similar concept. It talks about reality as interconnected and changing, much like the shifting reflections of alternate lives in our story's mystical mirror. Can anyone expand on this?
Well, in Buddhism, there's a belief in sunyata or emptiness. It implies that everything is empty of inherent existence and is dependent on causes and conditions. It's similar yet contrasting to Descartes' view as it emphasizes interconnection and impermanence. So, our reality can be seen as a result of an interplay of personal experiences and collective human consciousness.
Interconnected and changing indeed, much like how our protagonist discovered various realities in the mirror. So could we perhaps say this? Our personal experiences, shaped through our perception, actually play a significant role in constructing our individual realities.
Exactly, Victoria. Our personal experiences do shape our understanding of reality. In fact, philosopher Immanuel Kant even proposed that our perception of reality is structured by categories that our minds impose upon it. But our story with the mirror adds to this, doesn't it? It suggests that these perceptions may not be absolute and are open to multiple interpretations.
I think the story invites us to reconsider the seeming absoluteness of our realities. Those mirror reflections were the protagonist's alternate realities, but they were just as real, if only to him. And this acknowledgement of varying realities can lead to empathy and acceptance, don't you think?
That narrative shift we experience through our protagonist's interaction with the mystical mirror is like walking into
Quantum physics land.
Exactly, Suyun. Let's look at the theory of superposition. It suggests that a particle can be in multiple places at the same time, until it's observed, and then it takes on a fixed position. Isn't that similar to our protagonist's experience? Connecting the mystical mirror to quantum physics, the realities presented in the mirror could be seen as the superposed states of the protagonist's life, existing simultaneously until he inserts himself into that reality.
Wow, that's quite a take, Victoria. And it brings new depth to our understanding of the protagonist's encounter. So it's like before he steps through the looking glass, all of his realities exist as superpositions?
As per the theory, yes. And this beautifully entwines with the theme of multiple perspectives we've been talking about. As soon as he observes a reality in the mirror, he collapses the wave function, unaware of the other realities, he gets drawn into the chosen one.
I think I remember something called string theory from a documentary. Is that about alternate realities too?
It is, Sion. String theory proposes that our universe may be just one within an infinite sequence of universes or multiverses. This aligns with our story's element of alternate realities, suggesting an almost unlimited number of possibilities for the protagonist's life, reflected in the mirror's varying depictions.
These theories, as perplexing as they may be, add a fascinating layer to our narrative, don't they? And they magnify the uncertainties and complexities of perception, reiterating the story's message that individual realities are multifaceted, influenced by our personal experiences, thoughts, and now, seemingly, quantum physics too. So, as we weave concepts of quantum physics into the tapestry of our narrative, we might consider how literature also explores alternate realities. Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass comes to mind. In his story, Elise slips into a fantastical realm, a mirror image of her own world. Isn't it fascinating?
Absolutely. Carroll's work is a masterclass in presenting alternative realities through the lens of imagination and whimsy, where mirrors become gateways to another world. The idea that one's reflection could represent another version of oneself, it's fascinatingly similar to our protagonist's roller coaster ride through multiple realities in today's narrative.
And transportation isn't just physical, right, Mia? It also alters her perception of her own world by contrasting it with the looking glass world. Like Alice, our protagonist intertwines with different versions of reality, altering his perceptions and morality along the journey.
Absolutely. Mirroring Mia's point, Philip K. Dick's works are remarkable explorations of alternate realities too. His novel The Man in the High Castle presents a world where the Axis powers won World War II, an alternate reality that Dick uses to explore facets of humanity and morality. The diversity in his narratives serve as metaphoric interpretations of realities, encouraging readers to question their perspectives.
Doesn't it all come back full circle? As if, perhaps, as humans, we are naturally drawn to the idea of transformative journeys pivoting around perception. Stories like these remind us that the constant in all realities, whether based on quantum physics, literature, or our own experiences, is ultimately our perception. It's us gazing into the looking glass.
And the power we hold within that gaze. Mia. Akin to turning the pages of a well-loved book, we each have the potential to read into our own narratives, page by page, chapter by chapter. It's our unique story, weaved into a multidimensional tapestry of realities.
When we think about magical realism in literature, what comes to my mind is the paradoxical blending of the extraordinary within the mundane. Doesn't our main character mirror this concept as he experiences the mundane, his reflection, and then is launched into these extraordinary alternate realities?
That's an intriguing point, Victoria. Our protagonist's reality, if looked from a certain angle, could essentially encapsulate the spirit of magical realism. There isn't a distinct line where the fantastical begins and the realistic ends. Much like in Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude, where the town of Macondo lives and breathes magical realism. It's all entwined, a tapestry of ordinary life threaded with magic.
You're right, Mia. And playing off that, doesn't Suyan's personal favorite, The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, also depict a reality steeped in magical realism? Those novel employs magical elements within the everyday actions of humans, subtly suggesting that extraordinary events aren't always supernatural, but maybe just unexplored facets of our own reality. Personally, I found it thought-provoking.
Indeed, Victoria. I'm always captivated by the unbelievable yet believable situations in Bulgakov's work. In the same vein, isn't our protagonist's bewildering journey through mirror worlds a form of magical realism as well? A story which blurs the lines of what's real and what's not, where the familiar gets twisted and transformed.
Suyan, you just put it into words perfectly. By bending the boundaries of logic, magical realism allows us to glimpse at an alternative, albeit familiar reality, just like our protagonist. But here, listeners can personally ask, what if such alternate realities reflected through the mirror are indeed real?
Reality is the art of seeing things as they are. By extending the nature of our real world, through our story, to the fields of art, we can grasp the crossroads of those realities. In particular, the surrealism movement springs to my mind at this point. It challenged the notion of reality and questioned what constitutes our physical and mental worlds.
That's a sharp observation, Victoria. Surreal art, with its dreamlike scenarios and strange juxtapositions, seems to offer a visual form of those alternate mirror worlds our protagonist encounters, don't you think?
I can see what you mean, Suyeon. It's the unfamiliar within the familiar, a perfect reflection of what our protagonist encounters and the magical realism we just discussed. Let's consider Salvador Dali's The Persistence of Memory. With its melting clocks against a landscape, it certainly defies our perception of physical reality and time. But doesn't it also resonate with our story's theme, challenging our protagonist's perception?
Art is definitely compelling in depicting these realities. Furthermore, modern art installations often explore the concept of interactive art, where the audience becomes a part of the artwork, their perception shaping the experience. This involvement can create a unique reality for each participant, much like our protagonist's unique encounters. Going back to the art discussion, aren't infinity mirror rooms by Yayoi Kusama an ideal example of this interaction?
Precisely, Mia. Kusama's art encapsulates a sense of infinite possibilities, don't you agree? In stepping into her mirrored rooms filled with twinkling lights, one's perspective is utterly transformed, much like our protagonist's perception shifting as he ventures into his mirror worlds.
Just as our protagonist's experience is unique to him, so is every observer's experience in the infinity rooms. It's a tangible proof that reality really can be subjective, isn't it?
What about abstract art? It often doesn't represent anything we readily identify, yet somehow it captivates us and affects how we perceive our reality. Victoria, what is your take?
Abstract art indeed further plays with our perception of reality. It moves away from traditional portrayal of objects and instead delves into the idea of concepts, fragments, and emotions. When an observer encounters an abstract piece, their biased interpretation budges their reality.
Just like in our story with the protagonist and his mirror, his interpretation of the alternate worlds contours his reality.
Exactly, his experience is echoed in abstract art. Abstract art intentionally disrupts established norms and forces us to question our perception. It detaches us from familiar concepts, allowing each viewer to perceive pieces in their own unique way.
That casts in a totally different light the essence of Pablo Picasso's works. His cubism, with its shattered forms and multiple perspectives, kind of resembles the multiplicity of our protagonist's mirror worlds. But Mia, I'm curious, what's an abstract artwork that deeply affected your perception?
One that comes to my mind is Jackson Pollock's Number 5, a riot of colors splattered across the canvas. It didn't decode into a specific object or scene, but took me on a journey through my own emotions and experiences, provoking a peculiar response and reality. In that sense, shifting perceptions about reality aren't just bound to our protagonist, it's quite intrinsic to the nature of abstract art.
That's truly intriguing, Mia. Abstract art doesn't conform to a single interpretation. Such is the case with our protagonist's experiences of exploring alternate realities. Each viewer, much like the protagonist, forms a personal understanding of the artwork depending on their own experiences and sentiments, further solidifying the subjective nature of our realities.
We've talked about all these abstract influences on our reality: art, literature, physics. But let's not forget the significant role our mental health plays. From my personal struggles, I have learned unmistakably how it shapes our perspectives. From anxiety to depression, it can draw very different realities for us.
Suyeon, you're right. It's about that metaphorical lens through which we view our world, isn't it? If you're in a state of chronic anxiety, your lens might be one of worry and fear. Everything in your reality could seem threatening or hostile.
Yes, every aspect of your life is clouded by that anxious feeling, from mundane tasks to interactions with others. You end up interpreting them as stressful, which shapes your reality. The same holds true for depression. Victoria, why don't you shed some light on that?
Mia, an individual grappling with depression might view their reality through a lens of desolation or hopelessness. Events that might appear trivial or insignificant to others could seem insurmountable. They may interpret their realities as filled with obstacles or setbacks, even when it might not be the case for someone else.
And that lens, that perception of reality, in itself, guides our actions. Right, Mia? Anxiety making us play safe, isolated. Depression often resulting in withdrawal. So understanding and addressing our mental health is essentially key to shifting our perceptions, and hence, our realities.
Absolutely, Suyeon. Our mental health commands our actions, encounters, and subsequently our experiences, shaping our reality accordingly. However, it is vital to underscore here that these perceptions are not a life sentence. Through therapy, medication, or simply lifestyle changes, we can modify the lens through which we see our reality.
Just like our story's protagonist, we too have the power to shift our realities. If he can experience and accept multiple diverse universes, we too can work towards fostering a healthy and accurate perception of our own life. So, as we have just discussed, our mental health influences how we perceive the world around us. But, have you ever considered the role of hallucinations in shaping our realities?
Hallucinations, you mean like in severe mental disorders or substance use situations?
Yes, indeed. But the focus here is not on promoting substance use or ignoring the distress caused by hallucinations in mental disorders. Our aim is to bring light to an intriguing concept: how sensory misinterpretations can lead to the creation of unique realities.
Like that feeling when you think your phone vibrated, but when you check, there are no notifications.
Yes, Suyeon, that is a simple form of a sensory hallucination, a tactile one. Our brain is constructing a reality where there is a notification when there is none. Now, let's consider a more complex hallucination, an olfactory one. Imagine you're alone in a room and suddenly you smell a distinct aroma of baking, let's say a chocolate chip cookie. But there are no cookies being baked, not even in the vicinity of where you are.
So you're saying the smell creates a reality where someone's baking cookies, influencing my actions, maybe even triggering a craving, even though there are no cookies actually baking?
Exactly, Mia. We cannot smell the cookies, but you, experiencing the olfactory hallucination, do. Your reality at that moment might be drastically different from ours. It's not about which experience is right or wrong, but about recognizing the individualized realities we can inhabit.
That's fascinating. This really proves that reality isn't static or universal. It's tailored by each individual's experiences, perspectives, and yes, occasionally, hallucinations.
And it underlines the whole essence of our tale, doesn't it? Our realities, just like the ones the protagonist explores in the mirror, are boundless, unique, and ever-changing. Weren't we discussing about the influence of hallucinations on our perceptions of reality? It's been an interesting journey to explore through the mirror of tales. I believe, though, sometimes it's our everyday experiences that challenge our perceptions the most. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Well, I remember one instance distinctly. There was a day when I accidentally wore different colored shoes to work. I didn't notice it until someone finally pointed it out. Now, the funny thing is, when I looked back at my day, all the weird stares which I initially thought was because I looked stunning, or my attire was commendable, was actually because of my mismatched shoes.
That's a great example, Mia. I can imagine how your perception of those reactions must have flipped entirely.
I've had a similar experience too. Out rollerblading late one night, as the city lights passed by in a blur, I felt an unusual calm. Despite being in the center of a fast-paced city, the gift of solitude in that moment painted a new reality for me. From an initial perception of city life filled with pure chaos, that night my reality shifted to the idea of soothing tranquility within the chaos.
Yes, Suyeon. That paints a clear picture on how our surroundings and experiences shape our realities.
These stories echo the core concept of our fairy tale, that reality is not rigid, but rather it evolves. Understanding this helps us uncover unique perspectives and recognize that our experiences can build delightful and unique realities. Our perceptions and experiences always make for interesting conversation, don't they?
Totally, they do shape our realities in their own ways.
Speaking of which, let's share some of our listener-submitted experiences of encountering abstract realities. Remember, listeners, there's beauty in each of these alternate realities.
Here's a unique one. It's from Sam in San Francisco. He shares, "A couple years back, I was in a museum, absorbed in a beautiful impressionist painting. Suddenly, it felt like I was part of the painting itself, living in its vivid colors and undefined shapes. The people around ceased to exist, and for that moment I lived in my personal impressionist reality. It was fleeting, but unforgettable.
Oh, how beautiful. Isn't it fascinating how art can trespass the bounds of reality and transpose us into a canvas of magic?
Yes, it's magical indeed.
We've got another message here from Ria from India. She says, "During a hectic day, amidst the concrete jungle, a flight of butterflies darted around me. It felt like I was transported into a serene rainforest, away from my bustling city. Each flapping wing echoed tranquility, reshaping my reality momentarily."
To find serenity within chaos, isn't that an abstract reality itself?
Absolutely. Moments that transcend routine realities can happen even in the most unusual places.
It's amazing how our listeners' stories revolve around transformative experiences, each creating a unique and abstract version of reality.
You're right, Suyeon. It's these evocative shared narratives that pave our pathways through the looking glass, inviting us to embrace the many realities we incubate within us. Building on our listeners' narratives, we encounter another layer of abstract realities in popular culture. Movies like Inception, TV shows like Rick and Morty, don't they toy with our perception of reality?
Oh, Inception. No one can possibly forget that mind-bending journey. The film's director, Christopher Nolan, has woven layers of dreams within dreams, making the viewer question reality, perception, and the concept of time itself.
Adding to that, Rick and Morty, an animated series, sends its characters into multiple dimensions, each with its own reality. It's like delving into a rabbit hole of realities that traverse the limits of our perception.
What I find fascinating with Inception is how it employs dream levels to form an intricate maze of realities. This raises questions about how thin the veil between our world and alternate realities might be. Does anyone wonder how our lives would differ in those alternate realities?
That's the magic of these narratives. They ignite our curiosity, making us yearn for something beyond the ordinary. Whether it's the cerebral labyrinth of Inception or the multiverse in Rick and Morty, they challenge us to reconsider our own perspectives.
And through that challenge, they invoke a sense of liberation, the freedom to traverse realities and perspectives, shedding the self-imposed boundaries of our perception. It's a fascinating thought, don't you think?
As we embark further, let's not forget the part technology plays, specifically augmented reality and virtual reality. These platforms blur the fine line between the actual and the virtual. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Victoria, virtual reality transports us into different visual and auditory environments, doesn't it? It's like an immersive mirror world, drawing similarities with our story's alternate realities.
Yes, exactly. Kind of mirrors the protagonist's journey inside the mirror, right?
And there's augmented reality. Instead of replacing our surroundings like virtual reality, it overlays digital entities onto the real world, transforming our reality. Wouldn't you say so?
I believe so, Suyeon. This overlay, it's like a blend of two realities, isn't it? Could we consider this as adding another layer to our perception?
What an intriguing thought, Mia. These tech advancements invite us to navigate the fine line between actual and alternate realities. Suyeon, in your line of work, have you experienced any of these?
Oh, definitely, Victoria. As a courier, navigation apps enhance my ground reality with directions. Sometimes it feels as if I'm living in a mirrored reality, just like our story's protagonist.
And what's exciting is that we're only scratching the surface. More sophisticated tech might make these alternate realities more tangible, maybe even indistinguishable from our own.
Indeed, it's an exciting prospect, but also a call for mindfulness. As we appreciate the charming maze of realities, let's not forget to stay grounded in our own perception, thus making it a rich tapestry of unique experiences. As we've journeyed through the abstract realities, it's crucial to talk about the ethical aspects. Are there any boundaries or rules that you think exist in these self-constructed realities?
That's a complex question, Victoria. I suppose since each reality is subjective and based on personal perception, creating ethical boundaries can be tricky. And being overly immersed can distort our true reality, right?
Mia's right. In addiction recovery, we emphasize maintaining a grounded perception, More so because a skewed reality can deceive us into unhealthy habits and behaviors. But what about the ethical implications of pursuing rose-tinted realities, Victoria?
It's a fine line to tread, Suyeon. While these realities allow for exploration and growth, detaching too much from the actual reality can foster a disconnected society. We might lose the essence of authentic human connection.
And on some level, aren't we all responsible for the collective consciousness? If we live in our own reality, devoid of empathy or understanding for others, society might become fragmented, don't you think?
Surely. It's the balance that counts, I guess. Learning from the abstract realities but still cherishing our present reality. Still, how one draws the line remains an individual perspective, like that of our protagonist and his myriad encounters.
Certainly, Suyeon. Ending on a slightly philosophical note, it underscores how perception is indeed a powerful factor. It shapes alternate realities and the ethics that govern them. Perception molds our reality, doesn't it? From our protagonist's mystical mirror revealing varied realities, and our deep dive into philosophy, science, literature, art, and mental health, all the way to the role of technology and ethics, we've realized, wouldn't you agree, that reality isn't a static concept.
In line with our protagonist's narrative, reality, it seems, is a product of sensitivity and interpretation, absorbing the symphony of life in different tones, each note shaping an alternate reality. And it's through understanding this eclectic melody that we arrive at an intimate story we call our life.
Absolutely, Mia. Just as in the anchor story, every encounter of our protagonist with the mirror introduced him to a fresh reality. It paints a harmonious picture of millions of realities living side by side, differentiated merely by individual perception.
Isn't it amazing, Mia and Suyeon, when our protagonist went from confusion to acceptance of these different realities? And what about us? Should we see it as a step towards embracing the vastness of our own existence?
It could indeed, Victoria. As we timeless listeners venture into the abstract, we craft our tales, personal and unique. It's amazing, really, how a mystical mirror managed to deliver such a profound message about existence.
A mirror that became a gateway to different selves and various realities. But hey, let's conclude tonight with a calming meditation.
Let's all close our eyes. Breathe in the knowledge of this overwhelming expanse of reality. And as you breathe out, let go of the boundaries. Let go of the rigidity. We invite our listeners to embrace each breath as a new mirror, reflecting yet another reality. And as you settle into your breath, remember, every reality, every story, every journey is part of this magical, complex mosaic that is your life.